We mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk earlier, and I brought up Alex Hormozi. You've also done some tremendous interviews with people like Patrick McDavid, who's worth almost $500 million now. He also spoke at Grow with Video Live, and you guys also did a sit down together on your channel as well as Valuetainment. And he's on my list of people I absolutely want to talk to. I want to ask you, how do you get these high-level interviews with these massively busy, massive successful people in terms of these interviews and collaborations? How do you make those connections, and how does that all work out?
Yeah, I think for the ones you mentioned specifically, I think by investing was the first key. So getting Gary Vee and then shooting a podcast with him on stage, simply put, was paying his keynote fee. And even as we approached that, and I was like, okay, I know he's got the new book, 12 and a half. Can we do a book buy? And they were like, he doesn't need it anymore. He's Gary Vee 2022 now in 2023. And so it was stepping up. And that was one of the biggest, for a deeper dive conversation on it. I talked to Chris from the future about Grow with Video Live. What an incredible experience, but also what an incredibly stressful experience. Yeah. We ended up spending almost $1 million on that event. And we made our money back just on ticket sales. But talk about a stressful journey. Talk about
I can imagine that. I imagine Gary's speaker fee is in the six figures now.
Yeah, it was 155. It was 150 plus 5K travel at the time, and it went up since then. Immediately after, it went up. So we at the time, I was losing my mind. Like, that's more money than I made my first year of business. But then, I come back later, and I was like, that was a discount? I got almost half off because supply and demand. It just went up because of his time and his businesses. So Gary, that was
Gary, man.
This is wild. So that was obviously Gary. And then we hired PBD as well to speak. He did negotiate a little bit on his fee. And so I shot that podcast at the end. I think then I asked him in the future, and he was willing to just do a podcast. So, and I also invested with PBD. At the beginning of the year, he has a really cool an entire day intensive on building out your strategic business plan for an annual business plan, and then also thinking a couple years ahead. And
how much is the investment in that?
I think that was like $1,000 for the VIP ticket.
Oh, and done.
And so I got to spend like 17 minutes talking to him on Zoom, and my question and our interaction there, that was before Grow with Video Live. So even me being on his radar, I think those are some principles. Investing with the person, investing in their stuff, valuing their content, then obviously hiring him. Not that had to do with him coming on the podcast or not, but it certainly really put me on his radar because he was now committed to
put you on the radar, built the relationship, built the rapport.
Yep.
Easiest access to FaceTime with someone is pay their fee.
100%. And then the final one was interesting was Alex and Layla at the time spoke for free, which was wild. But they live here in Vegas, so that was an easy one for them to come over through another connection of an agency that they had worked with in the past. Mm-hmm. The hook for them, and I can't speak to this exact moment, but I definitely know at the time they're in this convergence of massive growth, their YouTube channel growing. The hook for them was just getting the content, being on stage, and having more content.
Yes.
And I was able to ask Alex to speak meta to his content, because he'd always been speaking about $100 million offer and sales and all this other stuff. He hadn't really had a platform to speak about, dude, how did you grow your content platforms and all this stuff so rapidly? So that was a pretty wild one. So that's how they all kind of came together. Heather recently had Layla on on our Think Media podcast. That episode comes out in the next 60 days or something, and she just drove over in Vegas. Caleb credits me as his mentor, which Caleb is now their main content guy, building their whole team. Caleb Ralston. There's some great interviews out with him. He worked for Gary. He was kind of a second D-Rock. So there's different things.
I'm familiar with Caleb. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. In fact, a guy you should definitely connect with. I think he's as a content strategist. A lot of cool things. You guys have a lot of good synergy. So some of those things. It just goes back. I mean, there's maybe lots of principles in there, but whether it's stepping up and investing, whether it's just as you build up relationship and over the years. I mean, I've known Caleb now for like 20 plus years, and now he happens to be working for Alex and Layla to work for, and so there's different bridges of relationship. That reminds me of a proverb that, a good reputation is more valuable than like silver and gold. And so I think also just slow and steady, getting to know people, always adding value, always giving first. And then when you maybe ask, hey, PBD, can I do a podcast with you? I'm going to be in Miami. He's like, yeah, I can give you, an hour and I'll come to you. And so through lots of different touch points and just building your reputation up over the years, I think some of these opportunities can happen.